What's going on, guys? Sticks here with the Token Minorities, bringing you another deck on Pokemon TCGO, and today I am bringing you a Legacy deck centered around Dusknoir and Empoleon. And before I get into the deck, just a reminder that if you guys liked this video or found it helpful, please leave a like, drop a comment, and maybe click that subscribe button. It really does help us out and lets us do more cool stuff for you guys. And as for the question of the day, my question of the day today is, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Okay, I'll be honest with you guys. It is a Friday. It's been a long week. I'm really tired, so I couldn't think of a super thought-provoking, relevant question of the day to give you guys, so I decided to just give you that really random one and see what you guys can come up with it. So, sorry I couldn't think of an awesome question of the day, but you know what? This one will suffice, and I still wanted to come up with one. It's just not any good. So yeah, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Let me know in the description and why. Honestly, I just want to see what you guys come up with and what you have to say about that. I'm very interested to see what type of responses I get. But anyway, on to the deck. Like I said, centered around Empoleon and Dusknoir. This was just a really cool idea that I came across. It's a very old idea, but still is really awesome. And this Empoleon is the main attacker of the deck, 140 HP, so actually pretty bulky, very bulky by non-EX standards. With the ability Diving Draw, once during your turn, you may discard a card from your hand. If you do, draw 2 cards. Now this has inherent synergy with a Pokemon and card that I know you guys have already seen, and that is Propagate Exeggcute. You just Propagate Exeggcute into your hand, Diving Draw, discard it, and then get essentially 2 free cards for not having to discard anything valuable. So there's that synergy right there. And then the attack is attack command for a single water energy. You do 10 times the number of Pokemon in play, yours and your opponent's. You're almost always going to have 6 Pokemon in play, or at least you're going to try to, so there's 60 damage right there for 1 energy, which is in itself pretty solid, but not amazing enough to build the deck around. However, with combination of things like Laser, Silver Bangle, all of that, all of a sudden attack command hits for a pretty decent amount of damage to where you can build a deck around it and you can take some pretty significant knockouts. And of course, we have Dusknoir being able to rearrange damage counters to where 70 damage on one Pokemon can turn into 150 on another when you move all the damage counters and you attack command again. So basically, what this deck focuses on is, once you get set up, just streaming Empoleons at your opponent while continually being able to rack up damage with Laser, Silver Bangle, and attack command, and then just in one turn eliminating your opponent's threat that they have sent up at you. I mean, just basically your opponent spends time building up that threat on the bench, you build up damage on their board, once they bring it up, move all the damage counters to it, knock it out, and all of a sudden you're in a phenomenal position. So that is what this deck is centered around, and the entire strategy is around getting Dusknoir up and getting a bunch of Empoleons streamed to be able to use them while voice cracked. But as for the Pokemon, we are running a single copy of Smeargle. I could actually see running 2 copies in this deck. However, I decided to just go with a single copy, make it a little bit more budget friendly. But let's be real, if I'm running secret rares and full arts, I'm not really necessarily being super budget friendly. But you know what? Let's just pretend that I'm using the non-full art and secret rares of each thing. And Smeargle is the most expensive card in the deck, with the portrait ability, Poke Power, not ability. Huge distinction. It is a Poke Power, not an ability. Once during your turn, if Smeargle is your active Pokemon, you may look at your opponent's hand. If you do, choose a supporter you find there and use the effect of that card as the effect of this power. Basically just gives you an extra supporter early on that is phenomenal for being able to set up, get a bunch of Piplup and Duskull out so that you can not fall behind by too many prizes. Ideally, you just have Smeargle Portrait until you get set up, and then by the time Smeargle gets knocked out, your board is set up, and you're able to use Diving Draw to get the cards that you need and just start attacking from there. So yeah, 1 Smeargle, 2 Exeggcute, because if we're going to have the synergy of Diving Draw and Exeggcute, and we're going to be running at least 1, you might as well run 2 so that you have the amazing combination of Exeggcute plus Junk Arm, where you just put 2 Exeggcute back in your hand, Junk Arm, and essentially get free cards. Like, Junk Arm essentially turns into grab something from your discard pile, Computer Search turns into search your deck for a card and put it in your hand. Ultra Ball becomes search for a Pokemon and put it in your hand. And all of the discard effects of each of those are essentially negated. So these 2 Exeggcute put in a huge amount of work in this deck. And honestly, this card is why the deck works as well as it does. Obviously, this deck can't function without Dusknoir and Empoleon. But without Exeggcute, this deck wouldn't be nearly as powerful, because with Junk Arm, Computer Search, Ultra Ball, Diving Draw, you're discarding resources as opposed to just 2 Pokemon that you can continually put back into your hand and then use those discard cards. 2-1-2 of Duskull through Dusknoir, because while Dusknoir is absolutely crucial to the strategy as well, we don't attack with it at all, so unless your opponent has Catcher or Red Signal, which has happened, you really don't have Dusknoir in harm's way. So just having a smaller line, I mean, enough to get it out consistently, but a smaller line is enough to get the use out of this card that you want to. And then Sinister Hand, as often as you like during your turn, you may move 1 damage counter from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another of your opponent's Pokemon. The more I play Legacy, I know I initially said that my favorite card was Keldeo, and yes, my favorite card of all time still is Keldeo EX, just because of sentimental reasons, and Keldeo is my favorite Pokemon. I think Dusknoir, in practice, is my favorite Legacy Pokemon, just because Sinister Hand in itself opens up so many possibilities of different decks. All of a sudden, decks that do like 20 spread damage here and there become viable. Decks like Empoleon, where you do like 60 to 80 damage per turn, become viable and usable. And all of a sudden, that 30 damage each turn from Hypnotoxic Laser, you can just leave your opponent poisoned while continually moving damage counters around. I mean, Dusknoir is so ridiculously versatile in a lot of... Actually, it's not necessarily versatile in itself, because, I mean, it does one thing, and it does one thing incredibly well, to where other decks are just able to abuse it to really a lot of success, and to actually become viable. I know I'm just saying the same thing over and over, but I really do love Dusknoir, and it opens the doors for a lot of other cool strategies to be able to be used. And finally, for the Pokemon, running 4-2-4 of Piplup through Empoleon, just because main attacker, it's a non-EX attacker, so it's going to be able to get knocked out somewhat easily. Yes, your opponent will have a lot of tough time knocking it out, but we still want to run 4 of these, just because we want to be able to streamline those at the end of the game to be able to win. 1 Computer Search, because, like I said, the synergy between Exeggcute, Junk Arm, and Computer Search, a Junk Arm with 2 Exeggcute in the discard pile essentially turns into 1 free card from your deck if you've already used Computer Search. So that is just a ridiculous combination. I mean, it's straight up ridiculous. I love it. And one thing I do have to warn you, if you use this deck, you're going to be clicking a whole lot. Because, okay, let's say that you just have an Empoleon in your hand and you have an Empoleon in play, 2 Exeggcute in the discard pile, and your Computer Search in the discard pile. You propagate, Diving Draw, you draw into a Junk Arm, you propagate twice, discard those with Junk Arm, grab Computer Search, you propagate twice again, discard with Computer Search, and then grab the card that you want. So there's a lot of clicking in this deck, and your turns take a while, but it is really, really awesome to see everything come together once you fall behind. And, well, I mean, once you fall behind and you're allotted the turns that you need to get set up, because once this deck gets set up, it's very, very difficult to stop. But anyway, on to the rest of the cards. 3-2 of Laser and Virbank. You could potentially run 2-3. I just like the 3-2 because, like I've always said, Laser works without Virbank. Virbank really doesn't do much without Laser in these types of decks where your attacks don't poison. So Laser is always useful. Virbank is only useful if you have Laser. That's why I run more Lasers than Virbanks. For Junk Arm, just amazing card, especially with Exeggcute. Phenomenal. For Level Ball, to be able to search out all of our Duskulls, our Piplups, our Exeggcute, Smeargle. There's so many searchable cards, and crucial searchable cards at that with Level Ball, that you want to run the absolute max number. 2 Random Receivers, so that a Junk Arm can potentially turn into a supporter in the right situation, and also just be able to be like, well, I don't have any supporter in my hand, I'm just going to Random Receiver and get one. 3 Rare Candy, because we're relying on 2 Stage 2s, so this deck is very clunky. Rare Candy is crucial to be able to get your deck going and not just be like, well, I have to manually evolve all of the Pokemon. Rare Candy just allows you to go straight from Duskull into Dusknoir, straight from Piplup into Empoleon, and get the deck moving. One Super Rod, because things are going to get knocked out, energy is going to be discarded, Pokemon are going to be discarded, so Super Rod just allows you to put back resources into your deck. One Switch, because while we run a couple Float Stones, if our Pokemon do get, like, paralyzed or put to sleep, we're just essentially like, well, I can't do anything this turn. Switch is a nice way of getting out of it. 3 Ultra Ball to guaranteed get what we want when we want. I would run all Level Ball, but unfortunately, the 2 most crucial cards in this deck, Dusknoir and Empoleon, cannot be searched out with Level Ball. And usually I would put Pecom here, but again, because of those 2 Exeggcute, the discard drawback of Ultra Ball is pretty much mitigated, so I'm able to use those consistently. And then as for the supporters, 3-4 of N and Oak. I don't run Juniper just because you don't have a lot of resources you want to discard. Really, the only things you want in your discard pile are the Exeggcute, and the reason you have both Exeggcute is so that you don't have to discard all the resources that you need with things like Computer Search, Junk Arm, Ultra Ball, and stuff like that. So we don't want our supporters to just kind of mitigate that all in one turn. So that's why we're running only Shuffle supporters. And then 1 Skyla to potentially search out a rare candy if we need it. As for the tools, 2 Float Stone, throw them onto Dusknoir because Dusknoir is way too heavy. 3 retreat costs, just slap that on there, get that thing out of dodge. And 2 Silver Bangle to essentially act as 3 more Pokemon for attack command. Honestly, until you play this deck, you don't realize how crucial 30 damage is. Silver Bangle is a freaking godsend for this deck, and I mean, it just helps out way so much. Wow. Not way too much. It helps out the right amount, but it helps out a ton. So definitely always run Silver Bangle in this deck. And finally, 6 Water Energy. You're able to run a lower energy count because you're only attacking with a single energy attack. And that hits for a lot of damage in the right scenario. And I've talked for way too long. Let's go ahead and actually see this deck do what I was talking about it doing. Alrighty, we have found one against Entrenador Adol with a, I didn't even see what it was. It looks like a Fighting Psychic and something else, but I wasn't paying that much attention because I was trying to figure out how to pronounce their name. But either way, we are in a match, as it were. We do get to flip the coin flip. Do we get to go first? Yes, we do, because Tails never fails, except when it does. With this deck, you always want to go first. There's absolutely zero upside to going second, because this deck doesn't even attack turn 1. This deck really relies on getting set up as quickly as possible and giving your opponent only a few prizes before you get completely set up, because otherwise your opponent will just steamroll you early game, and if you can't get anything else going, then you're kind of just screwed. So what I am going to do right here is go ahead and Level Ball, grab an Exeggcute, that way I can go ahead and get that thing in the discard pile. Ultra Ball, get rid of... Okay, I'm going to get rid of the Exeggcute for sure, but I think I'm going to get rid of a Water Energy as well, just because I can Super Rod that back in if I want. Let's grab a Smeargle. Go ahead and play that sucker down. Let's play the Water Energy onto the Duskull. Retreat into my Smeargle. Then, let's Exeggcute just... Okay, so I'm kind of playing my odds right here off of what my opponent can get, because if I get a Juniper... okay. So, I don't know. Like, if I get an Oak, then... Okay, so yeah, I'm going to shuffle the Exeggcute back into my deck. I don't know. I was just kind of hedging my bets. I was being like, you know what? I'm probably going to get an Oak, but I really should have just let it go, as it were. That way, leave the Exeggcute in my discard pile. And then let's go ahead and Junk Arm, get rid of the... Well, let's see. I already put back both Water Energy in my discard pile. So let's go ahead and get rid of Dusclops and a Laser because I want a Water Energy for next turn. Be able to grab a Level Ball, probably get a Piplup out. That way I can at least potentially have an Empoleon next turn. Play that down. And then I actually even have an Oak for this turn too. So that is really, really nice. I kind of forgot about that. Get another Piplup. And there we go. We are in a very, very nice spot. This was actually a pretty ideal setup turn 1. Probably should not have put the Exeggcute back into... Actually, you know what? I needed to, because what I was going for there was if I Super Rodded with the Exeggcute in my discard pile, then I would have had to put the Exeggcute back in my deck. I didn't want to Portrait and then only have a Juniper and get rid of both my Empoleon and Super Rod, and then that way I essentially lose an Empoleon and 2 Super Rods. So basically, I was just kind of hedging my bets, because if I had Portraited an Oak and I had not done any of that, then that would not have been a big deal at all. Because what I would have done is I would have just shuffled back the Super Rod and the Empoleon into my deck. So, and then, I mean, that would have fixed everything. However, if I had drawn a Juniper and I had not played the Super Rod, then I would have lost a Super Rod, an Empoleon, and 2 Water Energy. This way, the only negative outcome I had from portraiting an Oak or an N was to put an Exeggcute back into my deck. And if I had to exchange losing an Empoleon, Super Rod, and 2 Water Energy for simply having an Exeggcute that I searched out back in my deck, I will take that every single time. Unfortunately, we are playing the one person in the world who uses full heal. That's unfortunate. I will need to evolve my Duskull as soon as possible. I'm going to go ahead and evolve one of my Piplups into Prinplup just so I can have that going. And then let's Oak. I don't want to risk a Juniper again. And okay, this is interesting. I get another Duskull, which I'm definitely going to play down because my opponent is probably just going to knock me out next turn anyway. And yeah, let's end the turn right there. So, unfortunately, did not get a rare candy into a Dusknoir or an Empoleon. That's fine. My opponent is just going to attach an energy, knock out my Smeargle and my Duskull. And this is looking pretty bad for me. I mean, I've given up 2 prizes. However, at the same time, my opponent is playing Landorus, and if I can knock out his Landorus this turn, and if I can get an Empoleon and be able to knock out his Landorus this turn, then I basically will just win because my opponent will not be able to keep up, and I'll be able to take 2 prize knockouts. What do I get? I get an N. Well, nothing lost. I kind of just wanted to get my Random Receiver in the discard pile. That way I can Junk Arm for it later if I want. And, oh, that is beautiful. What I am going to do is immediately... Well, let's see. What do I want to? Huh. So I could Computer Search, get rid of the Oak and the Water Energy. Yeah, let's do that. Get rid of the Oak and the Water Energy to get another... To get an Exeggcute. This way I can go ahead and... evolve up my Dusknoir, and this way I have an Empoleon for next turn. Well, actually I have an Empoleon now because I evolved my Prinplup next turn. Let's Diving Draw, get rid of my Exeggcute, draw 2 cards, and okay, that's something I can work with. I would have liked to have been able to get a Water Energy. That way I could start putting pressure on this Landorus. However, that's not a huge deal, as he will be able to do 30 and 30 to something. But otherwise, I mean, I'm in a fine position. My opponent, oh no. He'll be able to Land's Wrath me and knock out my Empoleon, which honestly, if I don't draw a rare candy, is going to just completely decimate me. Like, if he's able to knock out this Empoleon, I have absolutely nothing. I'll have to pray that I draw into, or that I Oak into another rare candy and Empoleon, but oh, my opponent is just going for Hammerhead. I mean, honestly, that's a choke. That is a gigantic choke. My opponent needed to get rid of my Empoleon. Now my Empoleon not only stays alive, but I have the Diving Draw, I have the energy. Well, there we go. So, yeah, I'm just going to play the energy onto my Empoleon, Professor Oak, and that is really, really nice to draw a Junk Arm. What I can do is immediately Exeggcute back into my hand, Junk Arm, or first going to Diving Draw. Diving Draw, that way I later only Junk Arm for what I need. Get an N and a Random Receiver. Yeah, let's go ahead and put the Exeggcute back in my hand once again, and this is where it kind of gets a little bit tedious, because you constantly are propagating back into your hand. Let's go ahead and Junk Arm. Let's grab... do I want to grab a Level Ball, or what do I want to grab? I think just a Level Ball. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to go for. Let's go ahead and Level Ball. Grab my other Exeggcute. That way I can put that thing away later if I need to. And at this point, I do have a knockout on the Landorus thanks to weakness. So Empoleon does one-hit KO the Landorus with 3 energy. And just like that, all of my opponent's energy are wiped off the board. And I'm just, yeah, I'm in a phenomenal spot. I even get a laser and a Prinplup. I can diving draw again. I can Skyla for something. And yeah, I mean, that's just as good as of a position as I could hope to be in. My opponent does Hue. That's fine, actually, because I'll be able to get rid of my Exeggcute and my Random Receiver and I want to hold on to the Skyla because I can go and grab a Junk Arm or something like that a little bit later. My opponent does Catcher. Does he get heads? Yes, he does. This is why I run Float Stone, because otherwise Dusknoir is too dang heavy to practically retreat. And alright, my opponent does get a knockout on another Piplup. So, I mean, I'm down 4 prizes to 3, but the thing is, like, I'm in a winning spot. Like, I pretty much win this game because I can double propagate, Junk Arm for... Heck, I can even Junk Arm for a Computer Search if I want. But I'm going to immediately go ahead and Junk Arm, get rid of both of my Exeggcutes. And then, let's see, what do I want to grab? Probably just the Computer Search because, I mean, that's a very nice combo to have with 2 Exeggcutes. Let's go ahead and Skyla, grab a Rare Candy. Okay, there's 2 Empoleon left. Actually, let's grab the Silver Bangle. That way I can one-hit knock out the Landorus this turn. And now let's go ahead and double propagate my Exeggcutes to be able to Computer Search. Probably for a... Actually, you know what? Well, yeah, let's Computer Search for... Computer Search for another Empoleon. Because, I mean, I can always just dive and draw, and all I need is a Rare Candy in order to be able to evolve my Piplup on the bench into an Empoleon. So yeah, let's go ahead and diving draw, get rid of this Exeggcute, draw into 2 more cards. Hopefully it's something we can use. Not really, but let's go ahead and first things first, retreat into my Empoleon, Silver Bangle that bad boy up so that I can, yeah, I can take a one-hit knockout on the Landorus, play the water energy onto my Prinplup, attack command, knock out this Landorus, and there we go. We are now down to 2 prizes. All it took was just one turn, not one turn. All it took was just getting a decent setup and 1 Empoleon, and as you can see, the Empoleons kind of build off each other. The diving draws are just so ridiculously good. Like, being able to just consistently draw cards, and then with the 2 Exeggcute, as long as you don't have to play those guys down, the 2 Exeggcute are actually really, really, really strong in this deck, just because you're able to, not only diving draw with them, but double Exeggcute Junk Arm for a Computer Search, and then double Exeggcute Computer Search, and you essentially just discarded nothing, and you get reuse your Computer Search for absolutely no downside. So, I mean, Exeggcutes just have such amazing synergy in this deck. My opponent, I honestly don't know what my opponent's going for right now. We see the Timber, and we see the Voltorb on the bench. Yeah, that's what it looks like. My opponent is just going to low kick. Well, if I can get a couple more Pokemon into play, I'll actually be able to take a one-hit knockout on this Timber, which I am going to, well, first thing, I am going to double Exeggcute. I'm going to Exeggcute to propagate. Let's Ultra Ball, see if there's another Smeargle in the deck that I could potentially grab. There is not. That is fine. What I can do now is go ahead and get a second Empoleon out, and then double propagate once again. Oh, whoops, missed the click. Missed the click, not misclicked. I missed the click. And then, yeah, let's go ahead and put both of them back in my hand because I am just going to go ahead and double diving draw. Let's diving draw off this one, see if we can get a Rare Candy or something like that. We get a switch, so that's fine. I'm just gonna rare... Whoops. I was trying to diving draw, but I kind of forgot which Empoleon I used it with, so, oops. Did not mean to do that, but, whatever, it's fine. The funny thing is, even if I had played the Exeggcute down, I would have been able to knock out this Timber. But you know what? I'm just going to write it off as saying if my opponent doesn't get another Pokemon into play, I will be able to move damage counters onto the Voltorb, knock it out, and knock out the Timber at the same time. So I'm just going to say that it was completely planned, not that I was just kind of running on autopilot and clicked attack command because I thought I'd be able to click attack command because I thought I'd be able to click diving draw on the Empoleon, and I didn't bother actually looking at what I was clicking. My opponent does end me, but that's actually not a big deal. Well, he puts the Exeggcute back in the deck, so that is unfortunate. But yeah, what I would have been able to do is just Exeggcute back into my hand, double draw, and then, or diving draw, sorry, and then go from there because I still had one Exeggcute in the discard pile. That's all you need for diving draw. Why do I keep calling it dual draw or double draw? It's diving draw. All you need is one Exeggcute for that. I would have been able to just build up a whole new hand off of that and pretty much have won the game from there. So yeah, that was game one. Not the most competitive, but still showed off Empoleon against one of the biggest matchups you will find in the Legacy format, and that is Landorus, and Empoleon just runs through it. So you know what? Solid. I'll call it a solid first match, but let's go ahead and try to find another one with this deck. Alright, we have found one against Joey the Big Boss, and guys, we are about to get smacked. Because this looks like a Genesect deck, and honestly, that just bodes horribly for us. Oh boy, this is going to be a rough match. On the bright side, I do start off with a very good hand. I'll be able to get an Exeggcute in the discard pile at the very least. I'll be able to search out some stuff. I'll be able to get a supporter. And yeah, so I mean, we even go second, which is just kind of one more nail in the coffin. On the bright side, Piplup and, well, the entire line is weak to lightning, not grass. So my opponent will have to G-booster in order to be able to one-shot my Empoleon. So I mean, that's like the one thing we have going for us right now. Because otherwise, this matchup really just is not particularly good. My opponent does dual ball. Okay, gets two tails. That's good because that means that we can at least survive, or at least we can at least survive this turn. That's not what I was trying to say. The longer my opponent gets put back, the longer we have a chance to actually be in this game as opposed to just getting steamrolled by one of the best decks in the game. But what I am going to immediately do is Level Ball, get at least one Exeggcute in the discard pile. I'm actually probably going to go ahead and get two, get rid of the Switch and the Exeggcute to Level Ball. Probably, yeah, you know what, let's just grab the other Exeggcute because I have a Junk Arm in my hand, I have an Ultra Ball in my hand. Like, I might as well do that. So let's go ahead and Junk Arm, get rid of both Exeggcute. I think I'm just going to grab a... Well, I'm obviously grabbing the Level Ball, but I think I'm going to grab a Duskull with the Level Ball. I'm going to grab... Oh, I think I'm going to grab a Piplup, actually. Because just I want to get attackers out. Let's go ahead and propagate once again. Because my Piplup is going to get knocked out. I mean, this active Piplup is just kind of fodder to the sacrifice to the gods so that I don't absolutely just die. But yeah, let's go ahead and grab a Smeargle. Play that down. Random Receiver, see what we get. Please draw support, something like that. Okay, we get an N. I'm just going to attach the Piplup and N. Get a fresh hand of 6 cards, see if something else, and wow. Okay, this is nice. Let's go ahead and Level Ball, grab a Duskull, and... Okay, let's Level Ball again. I think I'm just going to grab another Duskull because of Red Signal. Red Signal is the entire reason I'm doing that. Let's go ahead and play the Float Stone onto one of those, and then retreat into my Smeargle, and Portrait, see what we can get, and we can get a Chorus. So a Chorus for 5 is not bad. That's actually pretty nice. See if I can get something else, and... Well, I got something. Crap. Oh, well. I mean, on the bright side, I will be able to evolve one of my Piplups next turn, and if I can get a whatchamacallit, if I can get a rare candy, I'll be able to get an Empoleon and hopefully just start drawing into some stuff. And my opponent does get a single dual ball. Again, a single dual ball is nice because my opponent's already down a turn. And, oh wait, never mind, here's another dual ball. Gets another double tails. Oh my goodness. So we are getting very lucky on the dual balls. It's keeping us in the game at this point because once Celebi Genesect gets set up, we're just kind of screwed because then he can start red signaling, which will really put us at a huge disadvantage because he'll be able to red signal out stuff that we do not want to be out there. And on the bright side, my opponent does have to play one of his Plasma Energy onto his Genesect through Chorus Machine, which does not activate red signal, which is really, really nice. And I think my opponent is just going to Emerald Slash. So while my opponent does have a Genesect set up, a Virizion, a Celebi on the bench, I mean, while he does have that set up, Dusknoir can actually change all of that in itself. Wow, what a top deck. I get Noak's New Theory. What I'm going to do is go ahead and evolve Piplup into Prinplup, play the Water Energy onto it, and then just Oak's New Theory. See if I can get some good stuff, and wow, okay. So I don't just get good stuff, I get amazing stuff. This is awesome. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and double propagate, Computer Search, or yeah, it's Computer Search. I think I'm going to grab another rare candy with the Computer Search. Just because, I mean, I can always grab an Empoleon with the Ultra Balls. So let's go ahead and grab a rare candy. Now that I'll be able to get a Dusknoir and an Empoleon in one turn, thanks to drawing double rare candy. That's actually really, really sick. And then I still have my Portrait. I still have an ability to Portrait. So let's go ahead, Ultra Ball, get rid of the Exeggcute and the Exeggcute. Both Exeggcute to grab an Empoleon. That way I can... Oh, this is gorgeous. This is exactly the type of start you need in this deck against Virizion Genesect. Otherwise, you're just going to get steamrolled. And I mean, don't get me wrong. My opponent still has a pretty solid setup. I mean, you have a Genesect that's already fully powered. You have a Virizion that's fully powered and able to Emerald Slash. You have another Genesect on the bench. You have a Celebi going. So my opponent's setup is by no means bad. I mean, my opponent's setup is actually pretty solid. I'm just happening to get a phenomenal setup with this deck right now. But yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and Portrait immediately. Yeah, let's grab an N. I mean, it gives my opponent a fresh hand, but it also gives me a fresh hand as well. See if I can get another Piplup out or something like that. Unfortunately, the Virbank and lasers are going to be doing nothing for me this game. So that's kind of unfortunate right there. What I am going to go ahead and do is Exeggcute to double propagate into my hand once again to be able to junk arm away both of those. Maybe get another Piplup in play. I'm honestly not fully sure. Kind of wish now that I had... I kind of wish right now that I had played the energy onto the Piplup in my hand. And you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and Computer Search just because the Virbanks are going to be doing absolutely nothing for me this game. I know that I usually want to go ahead and do that, but I mean the Virbanks are doing 0 to nothing, including the lasers. So those are things that I just want to kind of get rid of. And yeah, at this point, like, I wish I had played the energy onto my Empoleon instead of the Prinplup. I mean, don't get me wrong. The reason I completely understand my reasoning for doing it, just because I wanted to hedge my bets, like go ahead and play the energy on the thing that was most likely to become a consistent Empoleon. But I did miss an attack this turn because of that, so that is a little bit unfortunate right there. Yeah, I have a laser. I'm probably just gonna play that to thin it out. It's gonna do, like I said, it's gonna do nothing in this matchup. Like, laser is completely useless because of Verdant Wind, and it only kind of has use on the Celebi. And either way, my opponent does run Sky Arrow Bridge, which, while it's not like the greatest, it's still it's still pretty decent. My opponent does just Celebi, okay. This is where Laser could potentially come in handy because Celebi doesn't inherently have any grass energy on it, and my opponent, in order to take advantage of Forest Breath, would have to attach an energy to it, because not only would Celebi not be able to not be able to use Forest Breath if it was poisoned, but I mean, like I said, it would waste an attachment for the turn if my opponent wanted to use Forest Breath. So my opponent wouldn't lose their manual attachment for the turn. It would just kind of, they would just be at one useful attachment instead of two. So we do see the Sky Arrow Bridge coming into play. My opponent has one Genesect set up, a Virizion set up, another Genesect that looks to be getting very set up, and we're kind of in a pretty bad spot right now. I mean, we do have an Empoleon and Dusknoir set up. My opponent is going to make the right play, and guys, we're gonna go down a prize before we even attack, and my opponent already has two Genesect fully set up. This is very not good. Oh boy. I'm trying to see what my opponent's gonna grab. Probably a Celebi is what I would guess. Oh, he grabs an Oak. That makes sense. I mean, just he must not have had to draw a supporter in his hand. So I am gonna promote my Empoleon. I draw into another, so that is pretty nice. I think I'm gonna, well, obviously I'm gonna play the Water Energy onto this guy. I'm gonna go ahead and, do I want a Skyla or N? I think N. Yeah, I think N, just so I can get 6 cards, put my opponent down to 5. Maybe he won't draw into that Oak that he got off his prizes. And I do get a Junk Arm. So what I can do is immediately just propagate both Exeggcute back into my hand. I'm going to go ahead and Junk Arm. Actually, you know what? I'm going to hold on to the laser, I think. Just in case my opponent brings up Celebi again. That way I can at least get some use out of my lasers. But what I am just going to do is try to get another Piplup into play. That way I can do more damage. Because Virizion does actually resist water, which is very unfortunate. Because, I mean, obviously 20 damage is very, very crucial. And it's a lot more difficult to make up that 20 damage with Attack Command, because that's 2 more Pokemon. And okay, I'm going to go ahead and Diving Draw, see if I can get maybe something else. Get another Prinplup, so that's fine. And then I'm going to Diving Draw with my other Empoleon, get rid of the Exeggcute, and go from there. Okay, so I get my other Piplup. That is very, very, very nice for me. Because what I can do is, you know, I'm just going to waste the laser, just because I can see my opponent ending me. And I really, really don't want that. Well, I really don't want to like draw into the laser and have that be one of my cards that I draw into. So, again, Laser Bank is getting absolutely no use in this matchup. And yeah, I know I'm playing it as if they have no use. I'm not even trying to get use out of them. But honestly, they are not going to be cards that I want in a situation that I need them. Like, they will only be in a situation where my opponent has to pass with the Celebi, and at that point all I'll get is a couple damage counters off of both of those, and that's a 2-card combination for 3 damage counters. I would rather have my Silver Bangle. Oh, by the way, I noticed that all of my Silver Bangle are prized in this match. That's lovely. That is absolutely great, because this is the one match that I want to have Silver Bangle in. Oh boy. So, I mean, I did get 80 damage on the Virizion. That's actually going to be very, very nice. Because once my opponent knocks out this Empoleon, I'll be able to go into my other Empoleon, move all the damage from the Virizion onto the Genesect that he attacks with, and then just be able to take that thing out immediately with another Empoleon. So that is exactly what I'm going to go for. I mean, I'm assuming my opponent's going to go for it. Yeah, he does. He just retreats into the G-Booster Genesect, who is going to blow my Empoleon away. And yeah, sad day for Empoleon. I'm wondering what my opponent's going to grab this time. Not the N, that'd be a bad thing to draw. He is just going to grab an energy. Completely understandable. I am going to go into my other Empoleon, and, well, that's nice. Let's go ahead and Rare Candy up the Piplup that is on my bench. Go ahead and evolve the Prinplup, or the Piplup into a Prinplup. And what's nice about having Dusknoir and Dusclops is my opponent can't just target one down and completely ruin my strategy. He has to, well, I mean, I'm making him focus on my Empoleon, because if he knocks one Dusknoir out, that means he's not taking out an attacker. And, I mean, I can always just get another Dusknoir in the same, at the same time. So this is very nice. Let's go ahead and Super Rod back in Piplup, Empoleon, and probably a Water Energy. Actually, you know what? Let's get Piplup, a Smeargle, and a Water Energy, just because. Let's go ahead and put both of the Exeggcute back into my hand. I want to draw into the Smeargle because I know the Smeargle is going to have use late game, especially with that Sky Arrow bridge in play. So I'm going to try to take advantage of it. I do draw into the Smeargle. That is fantastic. I am going to go ahead and Sinister Hand, move all but one damage counter from the Virizion onto the Genesect because there is 10 Pokemon in play. So all I need to do is just move 70 damage onto it. And this is where, once again, this deck comes in with a ton of clicks. If you are somebody who enjoys clicking the mouse, I suggest you use this deck because between Propagate and propagating 50 billion times per turn and Sinister Hand, you are clicking that mouse so many times. Like, it is kind of ridiculous. And this is why this deck is so much better in real life, because you can actually move faster as opposed to having to click your discard pile, click the Exeggcute, click Propagate, and then you have to do the same thing again for the other Exeggcute. And then you have to do it all over if you junk arm for like a computer search or something like that. But either way, we are able to knock out the Genesect with the G-Booster on it, and that is phenomenal for us. We do draw into our Silver Bangle. This means that we are now in the driver's seat of this game. We are tied in prizes. My opponent can knock this Empoleon out, but I'll still have an Empoleon left on the bench. I'll be able to Skyla for a Junk Arm to be able to Super Rod back in more of my Empoleon line. And yeah, I'm in a great position. My opponent does just load up that Genesect on the bench. Understandably so, because that means he can just G-Booster twice and not have to worry about drawing any cards. But either way, I'm in a great position now. I have 2 Empoleons in play. I have another Empoleon on my bench. I have a Smeargle to be able to use my opponent's draw support. I have a Dusknoir. I have another Dusclops with another Dusknoir in my hand. That was just as perfect of a setup as you could hope to get, and we were actually able to overcome a Virizion Genesect deck with a frickin' Empoleon Dusknoir. I'm not going to call it a budget deck, just because nothing in Legacy is truly budget, especially when you have to rely on things like Smeargle, because Smeargles are actually kind of expensive. But either way, that was a very awesome last game. Empoleon Dusknoir was able to come through, and Dusknoir was able to show just how strong it was. Simply 2 attacks. Being able to move all the damage counters around to where you want them, that is absurdly powerful, and is the reason I love Dusknoir and why it has a use in so many of the cool and obscure Legacy decks. But either way, thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. And this is Styx, signing out. Why not? See you guys.